Thomas, this is the 5th time in the last 6 months that I have treated you for alcohol poisoning or alcohol injury. I have to recommend that you undergo treatment, Dr. Lucas says. No, I'm not going to some damn asylum, Thomas replies. Thomas, if you don't get help, next time you might die, Dr. Lucas says. You say that like it's a bad thing, doctor, Thomas says. Thomas, what's wrong with you? Asks Dr. Lucas. I'm fine, leave me alone, Thomas replies. Thomas gets up to leave. Thomas, please, I want to help you, Dr. Lucas says. I don't want help, Thomas replies. Thomas leaves the doctor's office and goes to the liquor store across the street. Dr. Lucas watches through the window as Thomas leaves the store, loaded with bottles of whiskey. He puts them in his truck and drives away. Connie, please get me Mr. Smith's file, Dr. Lucas says. Yes, doctor, Connie replies. She finds the file and gives it to Dr. Lucas, who quickly scans the pages for the information he needs. Thanks, Connie. I'll leave early. I'm sure you can close it yourself, Dr. Lucas says. Yes, doctor, Connie replies. Dr. Lucas leaves his office, gets into his car, and drives to the address listed in Thomas' file. He doesn't see Thomas' truck nearby, but he didn't come to see Thomas. He goes up to the porch and rings the doorbell. How can I help? Asks Rachel. Hello, are you Mrs. Smith? Asks Dr. Lucas. Yes, I'm Rachel Smith. How can I help you? Asks Rachel. Mrs. Smith, I'm Dr. Mark Lucas. I've treated your husband for alcohol poisoning and alcohol injuries 5 times in the last 6 months, and I'm very concerned about him, Dr. Lucas says. Oh God, Rachel says. Dr. Lucas sees that Rachel is stunned by the news. Mrs. Smith, didn't you know that Thomas almost died 5 times because of his drinking? You probably saw the bandages, says Dr. Lucas. I had no idea. You see, Thomas doesn't live here anymore. He moved in just over 6 months ago, Rachel says. I understand. Do you know where he is now, Mrs. Smith? Thomas needs to be sent to a rehabilitation clinic immediately. Every time he comes to me, his condition gets worse and worse. Next time it could be fatal, says Dr. Lucas. I don't know where he lives. I haven't seen or spoken to him since he left, Rachel says. I'm guessing you didn't part on the best terms, says Dr. Lucas. One day he came home from work and found me with another man in our bed, Rachel says. She begins to cry, remembering what happened. Mrs. Smith, I didn't mean to upset you, but I am very concerned about Thomas. I saw him loading a large amount of alcohol into his truck after leaving my office. Do you know anyone who might know where he is? Asks Dr. Lucas. Perhaps his friend John knows, Rachel says. Where does John live? Asks Dr. Lucas. On the other side of town, I'll show you how to get there, Rachel says. Are you sure you're ready for this? Asks Dr. Lucas. If Thomas drinks himself to death, it's my fault. I should try to save him, Rachel says. They get into Dr. Lucas' car and head to John's house. Dr. Lucas, 7 months ago Thomas wouldn't have touched alcohol. He didn't even drink champagne on the toast at our wedding. If he's drinking himself to death now, it means I've ruined the kindest, gentlest, sweetest, most wonderful person I am. Ever knew, Rachel says. I hope we can still save him, Mrs. Smith, but we need to find him immediately, says Dr. Lucas. At John's house. Rachel, what are you doing here? John asks. Where is he, John? Asks Rachel. Who? John asks, feigning ignorance. John, this is not the time for games, Rachel says. Sorry, Rachel, but he made me promise not to tell you, John says. John, this is Dr. Lucas. Over the past 6 months, he has treated Thomas for very severe injuries and near-fatal cases of alcohol poisoning. Each time it gets worse, John. Next time Thomas may not live to see the doctor. Next time he may die. I can't let that happen, John, asks Rachel. John can't look Rachel in the eye. He just looks at the ground. I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad. He rented an apartment on Jefferson. It's apartment 135 in the Riverview complex, John says. Thanks, John, Rachel says. Rachel and Dr. Lucas head to the Riverview apartment complex and approach the door of apartment number 135. Rachel knocks. Thomas drinks whiskey straight from the bottle when he opens the door. When he sees Rachel, he steps back, trips over the table, and falls onto the sofa. Rachel and Dr. Lucas enter the apartment and begin tending to Thomas, who has passed out. When Thomas wakes up, Rachel is right in front of him. "Not only did you break my heart, now you've come to watch me suffer," says Thomas, lisping drunkenly. "Thomas, I know I hurt you badly, and I can't change it. God knows I would if I could, but no matter how you feel about me now, I still love you, Thomas, and I won't let you ruin my life," Rachel says. "I'm not ruining my life. You handled it perfectly for me. I'm just softening the edges of my heart," Thomas says. "Thomas, you'll soon drink yourself to death if you don't stop," says Dr. Lucas. "Doctor, I should have known you were here too. Why can't you leave me alone?" asks Thomas. "Because there are people who care about you, Thomas. Because as a doctor, it's not just my job, it's my responsibility to do everything I can to preserve and protect life," says Dr. Lucas. "But this is my life, and if I choose to live it in a bottle of whiskey, then so be it," says Thomas. "Thomas, what should I tell the children when their father dies of alcohol poisoning in a dirty apartment?" asks Rachel. "I don't know what you told them about why I left. Did you tell them that I found you in bed with another man? Do they know it's your fault that I left?" asks Thomas. "No, they don't know, and they never will," Rachel says. "Really? Well, I think they should know. Hiding the truth from those you love can lead to very bad consequences, okay? Let's call them right now," Thomas says. He gets up from the couch to get his phone. "Thomas, please don't," Rachel says. "Don't what?" "Don't tell the children that their ideal mother slept with another man. Don't tell them that I found you in our bed with him." "Why shouldn't I tell them that?" asks Thomas. "They're too young to understand. It will only hurt them," Rachel says. "Well, I'm a lot older than them, and it hurts me too. The only one who doesn't seem to suffer from all this is you," says Thomas. "Do you think I'm not hurt? Not a day goes by that I don't pray to God for forgiveness, and that you can forgive me too. Don't think for a second that I'm not hurt, Thomas Smith, but there are 4 children at home who needed at least one of us to be strong. While you were here drinking away your problems, I was there holding back my tears and smiling so that the children would think that everything would be okay. Oh, it hurts, Thomas, it hurts," says Rachel. "Thomas, telling the kids what happened may temporarily make you feel better since they'll see Rachel as less than perfect. But you really want 4 little kids to have the emotional scars of their mother being unfaithful to their father. Who did you drink yourself to death because of this?" asks Dr. Lucas. "How can I be sure that the children are even mine?" asks Thomas. Rachel punches Thomas. Thomas sways a little, but remains standing and looks at Rachel. "Thomas, I hope it's the whiskey talking, because if you have any doubts about who the children's father is, just look at any of their faces and you'll see yourself in the mirror," Rachel says. "Thomas, we want to help you. I know you're in pain. I can't even imagine what it's like, but living in a whiskey bottle is not living. Please let us help you stop drinking," Dr. Lucas says. "For what purpose, doctor?" Thomas asks angrily. "To get you back to normal, to get you back to work, to get you back to your kids, to get you back to happiness," Rachel says. "How can I be happy again after what you did?" asks Thomas. "Thomas, I can never undo what I did to you. I never meant to hurt you," Rachel says. "Of course not. You just didn't want to get caught. Tell me, how long were you with him before that day?" "How many were there?" asks Thomas. "Thomas, you have every right to know the answers to these questions, and I will tell you, but not here, not like this. I will only tell you everything with the help of a marriage counselor, when you are completely sober, so that your reaction is not exaggerated by the influence of alcohol in your system," Rachel says. "That's a compelling reason to stop drinking," says Thomas. He throws a bottle of whiskey at the wall. Thomas goes with Dr. Lucas and Rachel and checks into a rehab clinic. After 2 months, Thomas leaves the clinic and goes straight to his first session with a marriage counselor. Rachel waits for Thomas to enter and goes to hug him, but Thomas stops her with a hand gesture. "Don't touch me. Quitting alcohol has brought back the sharp pain in my heart. I can barely look at you now," Thomas says. Thomas, Rachel says. Let's just get this over with, Thomas says. They enter Dr. Angela Barnes' office. Hello, Dr. Barnes. I'm Rachel Smith. This is my husband, Thomas, Rachel says. Nice to meet you both. Please sit down and we'll get started, Angela says. Rachel sits down across from Angela at the table, but Thomas turns the chair 90 degrees and moves it away from Rachel so that he's facing the wall. Very interesting. Mr. Smith, why are you turning away? Asks Angela. Because right now, looking at Rachel hurts, it's like a knife is being turned in my heart, and if she touches me, I'll either vomit or become violent, Thomas says. I understand. It seems that things are much worse than I thought. Mr. Smith, if being around your wife is so painful, why did you agree to these sessions? Asks Angela. I'm here because she said she'd only tell me what I wanted to know if I stopped drinking and went to a marriage counselor, Thomas says. I understand that you believe that your marriage is over and do not even hope for reconciliation. If this is the case, I am afraid I cannot help you, Angela says. Doc, I still love Rachel, but given what she's done, I find it hard to believe I'll ever be able to trust her again the way a spouse should, Thomas says. I understand this is not uncommon in cases of adultery. Are you willing to work with me to see if there is any chance of regaining Rachel's trust? Asks Angela. I guess so, says Thomas. Okay. Now you said you only agreed to come here because she said she would tell you what you want to know if you did. What exactly do you want to know, Thomas? Asks Angela. I want to know how long her affair with that bastard I found her lasted, and if there were others, Thomas says. Very sensible things for Rachel to tell you if there is any chance of rebuilding trust between you. But given the extreme nature of this situation, I think it would be best if we gradually come to this information. Rachel, you should not reveal this information to Thomas yet. I won't say it's possible, and Thomas, you shouldn't ask until I say it's time to find out the truth. Can we all agree on this? Asks Angela. Yes, doctor, Rachel says. Why should I wait? I want to know now. I have a right to know now, Thomas says. Yes, Thomas, you have the right, but you are not ready. My job is to try to save your marriage, and if you find out the answers to your questions right now, it could destroy any chance of saving your marriage. I don't know if it was a one-time event or a long-term affair, but in your current state, it is better for your marriage not to know this now. We need to prepare you for this information, says Angela. It's going to hurt whenever I find out the truth, Doc. Why not do it now and then try to restore me? Asks Thomas. Thomas, I hope we can prepare you to the point where we don't have to rebuild you after this, Angela says. If you say so, if you won't let her tell me until you're sure I'm ready, then let's get started, Thomas says. Okay, to fully understand what happened, Thomas, first tell your side of what happened the day you found out. Then Rachel will tell her side without mentioning how long it happened. Thomas, you can begin, says Angela. When I walked into the kitchen that morning, I should have known something was wrong. Rachel was wearing a beautiful dress. She usually wore business suits to work, so the dress must have been a big clue. I remember telling her she looked beautiful and asking her why. She said she had a presentation in front of someone that day and wanted to make a good impression. I had no doubt since she often had special presentations, although she usually didn't dress up that much. When I left the house for work, I helped her put the children in the car so she could take them to school and kindergarten on the way to work. We kissed goodbye. She said that she would see me in the evening and left the entrance. I went to work and had 2 morning meetings, which went smoothly. I met a friend for lunch at a restaurant in the city center. I stained my shirt with sauce, so I decided to go home to change clothes. There was another meeting after lunch. It was a little before 1 in the afternoon when I arrived at the house. Rachel's car was nowhere to be seen. I assumed she was in the garage. There was a black BMW parked in front of the house that I didn't recognize, but that didn't mean anything to me. People in our neighborhood often park on the street when they come to visit, so I thought Rachel and her friends decided to have lunch with us. The front door was open, and noise was coming from the kitchen. I later found out it was the TV. My shirt was a mess, so I decided to change and then pop into the kitchen to say hello. I walked down the hallway to our bedroom and opened the door. My heart shattered into a million pieces in an instant. There, on our marital bed, was my wife, engaged in sex with another man. There could be no mistake. This was conscious sex between my wife and another man. I don't know how long I stood there before she saw me. It seemed like an eternity, but it could have only been a few seconds. Rachel probably knows this moment better. When she saw me, her gaze turned from passionate to pure horror. She screamed and tried to push her lover away. He protested until his head turned enough to see me standing there. He was literally caught with his pants down. He shouted something I don't remember and tried to pull up his pants and run out at the same time. He had to pass me to get into the corridor. I wasn't going to let him just walk away. I hit him and threw him out the window. He was able to get up after he hit the ground, and I heard the tires squealing from the front as the BMW drove away quickly. I turned from the window to the bed and saw Rachel holding a sheet, covering her naked body. She wasn't crying yet. I remember that at that moment she looked so scared that if I had jerked in her direction, she probably would have wet herself. After I stared at her for a while, I simply went to the closet, grabbed a clean shirt, and left the bedroom. I walked down the hall to the front door and heard Rachel running after me, yelling for me to wait and talk to her. As I approached the front door, I felt her grab my left shoulder. I turned around and pushed her with my right hand. I walked out the door, got into the truck, and returned to work. My meeting that day went very badly for me. Luckily, my assistant helped me out. After work, I knew I wouldn't go home, so I went to my friend John's and stayed there overnight. The next day, I rented the apartment I'm currently living in, took a long leave from work luckily. I'm the owner so I can do that, and bought new clothes so I wouldn't have to go home to get my stuff. That day, I bought the first of many bottles of whiskey, says Thomas. Rachel cries, even Angela, who is trying not to show emotion, wipes a few tears from her cheek. She quickly pulls herself together. Thank you, Thomas. I know this has been difficult for you. Okay, Rachel, now it's time to hear your side. But remember, don't point out how long this went on with the person Thomas caught with you, Angela says. Should I use his name? Thomas never knew his name, Rachel asks. So it was someone Thomas didn't know, asks Angela. Yes, Rachel replies. Interestingly, it's often someone both spouses know. You can use their name, but don't use their full name just yet, Angela says. Okay, like Thomas said, I was more dressed up than usual that day, but I did have a presentation in the morning. When I kissed Thomas goodbye in the morning, I didn't know that I would be bringing Kyle home to have sex with him for lunch. I took the kids and went to work. I gave the presentation and everything went well. After the presentation, I was surprised to find a message from Kyle inviting me to a picnic in the park. It seemed innocent, but I was wearing a nice dress. I didn't want to spoil him, so I called him and offered to have a picnic at our house. He agreed, and we met at home around 12:15. I arrived first, so I was in the kitchen watching TV. I left it on when I went to open the door, and so on, and didn't return to the kitchen, so Thomas heard the TV when he came home. When I met him at the door, Kyle put his arm around me and kissed me. I didn't feel comfortable kissing him in the house I shared with Thomas, but it was also very exciting. Unbeknownst to me, I found myself in our bedroom having sex with Kyle. I wasn't sure how much time had passed when Thomas came in. If he says it was a little before an hour, that means we were together for a little over half an hour. I find it strange that Thomas isn't sure how long he stood there before I did. I saw him because for me this moment was engraved in my memory. I saw him immediately. Deep sadness and great fear overwhelmed me at the moment when I saw Thomas standing there. I immediately realized that, most likely, I had lost the man I loved, and knowing how Thomas can react to things, I was afraid for my life and for Kyle's life. As Thomas said, Kyle didn't see him right away, but when he did, he was terrified. Kyle screamed at me that he thought I was. Said Thomas would be at work all day when he tried to pull up his pants and run away. I thought Thomas was going to kill Kyle when I saw him hit him the first time. Luckily, Thomas was content to just throw Kyle out the window. I was still afraid of what he'd do to me, but when he came out of the bedroom without attacking me, I decided that he would not kill me, so I thought that maybe I could get him to talk to me to try to fix everything. I caught up with him at the front door, but he pushed me. After he left, and I just lay there crying for more than an hour. Finally, I got up and started trying to call him. He didn't answer, and I understood why. When I went to pick up the children, he threw his phone into the yard when he left. I called the boss and apologized for not returning to work, saying I had a family emergency. I decided to hold on for the children and prepare dinner, hoping that Thomas would return, but knowing that most likely he would not come. When the children asked where their dad was, I said that he had received an important new job and would be away for a few days, but that he told them that he loved them and that he would be home soon. They still believe it, says Rachel. Okay, thank you, Rachel. Now that you've both heard the other's side of the story, what do you think? Asks Angela. I think she screwed up, Doc. She didn't say it outright, but the fact that she had a message from Kyle and was willing to meet him tells me that their affair has been going on for quite some time, Thomas says angrily. Thomas, please. I confess that I have come to a similar conclusion, but we will not discuss how long they were together until I thought you were ready for this information. While what she said could be interpreted as evidence that they were having an affair, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. They could have just been good friends who happened to be in bed that day. However, we will have to wait to find out, because given your emotional and possibly violent reaction, it would be very bad for you to find out now, Angela says. Can I ask her if she's seen Kyle since that day? Asks Thomas. No, I think it's only right to let you know, Angela says. Have you seen him since then? Asks Thomas. Yes, but it was nothing like that day. He came to see me about a week later. He was covered in bandages and had a cast on his left arm. I told him it was a very bad idea to be anywhere near me, but he said he needed to know what you did to me. He was afraid that you had seriously hurt me. When I assured him that you had not hurt me physically and that the only pain I felt was in my heart, he left and I haven't seen him since, Rachel says. Well, I think that's enough for today. We've set the ground rules and everyone has heard both sides of the events of that day. I would like to meet with each of you individually before next week, so that you can tell me what you couldn't tell each other, says Angela. 3 days later, Thomas comes for a private session with Angela. Okay, Thomas, I want to start by asking you about your relationship with Rachel, Angela says. Come on, Doc, Thomas says. When did you first meet Rachel? Asks Angela. Well, let's remember, it was the first day of kindergarten, so it was mid-August, and probably around noon since we were both in the afternoon session. I don't think I could say more accurately without a calendar that goes like this way back, or old-school records, Thomas says. You became close right away? Asks Angela. No, I was a very shy kid, and she was pretty shy too. Plus, at that age, girls were the enemy to us boys. They wore weird clothes, played with dolls, loved flowers and stuff like that. They were just too weird, says Thomas. Angela laughs a little. Yes, I seem to remember that little boys were quite strange creatures themselves. So you two met in kindergarten. When did you first become friends? Asks Angela. Well, we went to a pretty small school, so we all got to know each other quickly. So even though we weren't friends, we knew each other well from the beginning. I think we really became friends in fourth grade. We were paired up for a project, which required a lot of time together during the school day when we were researching an Indian tribe we had to give a report on. Well, I guess you remember that working on school projects was 50% work and 50% just killing time, says Thomas. For me, it was a lot more about killing time, as I remember, says Angela. Well, anyway, we killed a lot of time talking about all sorts of things. It turned out that we had a lot of common interests, so we had a lot to talk about. I think you also remember that fourth grade is exactly that age when boys and girls start to change a lot, says Thomas. Oh yes, puberty is a very turbulent time when the body changes from child to adult form, says Angela. Well, working so closely with Rachel, I started to notice changes in her body. She started getting curves and developing breasts. It was confusing to be around her, Thomas says. It's not surprising. I wouldn't be surprised if she was just as confused by her body's reactions to your presence, Angela says. Well, we gave a report and got an A+, but we kept in touch even after we no longer worked together. Well, the friendship that started then grew stronger in middle school. Rachel started dating guys in middle school. I had a few girlfriends, but nothing serious. In high school, Rachel dated this guy Neil for all 4 years. He and I hated each other, which made things difficult since Rachel and I still talked often, but Neil would often show up and take her away, says Thomas. Did you and Rachel ever think about dating in elementary or middle school? Asks Angela. We talked about it a few times, but we decided it would be like dating a relative. We were so close, Thomas says. When did you two start dating romantically? Asks Angela. I graduated from college in 3 years and went to work for a company here in town. Rachel was in her senior year of college, and it turned out that one of my first projects was across the street from where she lived. I got out of the truck and looked around the place project without noticing her, and she bumped into me as she was running, and we fell to the ground. I hadn't seen her for almost a year since I was in another college, so when we tried to untangle ourselves from each other, it was a big shock for both of us to see that we literally ran into each other. We had a brief conversation about what we were doing. I told her about my work. She told me about her classes. Then I asked her if I could invite her to dinner. She gave me this little smile that drove me crazy and asked if I was asking her out. I said it could be anything from a date to dinner with an old friend. She chose a date, and it was the beginning of our romantic relationship, says Thomas. How long did you date before you got married? Asks Angela. For 6 months, we knew each other so well that we didn't have to go through that part of a relationship where you get to know each other. So after 4 months I proposed, she said yes, and 2 months later we were married, Thomas says. How would you describe the early years of your marriage? Asks Angela. Heavenly. I thought our life was perfect. We both had good jobs that allowed us to live quite comfortably. 5 years later, I started my own company, which gave me a lot more flexibility, so I could go to football games, school plays, doctor's visits, you name it. We had 4 children over the course of 7 years, 2 girls and 2 boys. These 4 little miracles are the greatest thing I've ever done, says Thomas. Did Rachel ever seem unhappy or express a desire to change your lifestyle or relationship? Asks Angela. No, not as far as I know. Of course, people can give off signals that are obvious to them, but go unnoticed by everyone else, so it's possible that there were signs that I simply missed, Thomas says. Thomas, before the day you discovered her with Kyle, did you ever suspect or think that Rachel might be cheating on you? Asks Angela. Only in my darkest nightmares. Only in that place where I'm so insecure about myself and my masculinity that my worst fears come to light. Only in that dark place did I ever think that she could cheat. For me, what I saw that day and what I now suspect happened several times before that day was impossible. I couldn't foresee any real possibility that Rachel would be unfaithful to me, but it happened. She cheated on me, says Thomas. Well, I think that's enough for today. We've set the ground rules, and we've all heard both sides of the events of that day. I would like to meet with each of you individually shortly before next week's session, just so that anything you felt you couldn't say to each other could be said to me, Angela says. Thomas leaves. A few hours later, Rachel arrives for her appointment. Good afternoon, Rachel says. Good afternoon. Let's get straight to the point. If I am going to fully prepare Thomas to hear the answers to his questions, I will need to know the answers myself. Since how long have you been having an affair with Kyle, and was there anyone else besides him? Asks Angela. Well, Rachel says. Over the next few weeks, Angela meets with Thomas twice a week, with Rachel once a week, and with both of them once a week. Thomas still doesn't want to look at Rachel and stays out of her reach. This continued until Angela changed the situation one day in a group lesson. Okay, Thomas, I want to try something. I want you to face Rachel and Rachel face you directly to Thomas. You can stay out of reach if you want, but I want you to look at her. Angela says. Rachel immediately turns her chair, and after a few seconds of thinking about the situation, Thomas turns his chair too. He focuses his gaze on Rachel's legs. Thomas, I want you to look at Rachel. Angela says, I'm looking at her, doc. If I look above her feet now, I'll have to leave. Thomas says, well, I guess first look at her legs. Okay, Thomas, I want you to look straight at Rachel's feet and describe to them the pain she caused you, just as you described it to me in one of our sessions. Angela says, Rachel, the day I saw you with Kyle was the day I died. You killed me that day. Oh, my body was still alive, but my heart was broken into a million jagged pieces, and my soul went out like a candle that had run out of energy. Seeing the look of great pleasure on your face, and knowing that it was another man's sexual attention that gave that expression to your face after we had sworn to keep ourselves for each other's sake, made my chest feel very tense. Your breath, I felt like I was buried under 5 tons of earth. You did this to me. You made the choice to have sex with Kyle at least once. They didn't tell me why. I was not told if he was the only one. My pain increases every day as I am left with more and more questions. Did I do something to lead you into the arms of another man? Was sex with me so unsatisfying that you did it? Have fun somewhere else? Was sex with him better than with me? Have you ever had sex with me when you still felt him inside you? Where have I let you down? What did I do to deserve this? For God's sake, why? Asks Thomas. He can't stand it and starts crying. Rachel's immediate reaction is to walk up to him and hug him. Thomas thrashes violently, knocking Rachel back, and she trips over a chair and falls to the ground. Don't fucking touch me. Thomas screams through his tears. Thomas, for God's sake, calm down. Rachel, are you okay? Asks Angela. Physically, yes, but how can I be okay if I'm the reason he's like this? Asks Rachel. She also starts crying. Okay, let's try a different direction, Rachel. You seem very determined to make peace with Thomas. You keep saying that you miss him. Tell Thomas what you miss about him. Angela says, I miss his smile, I miss his laugh, I miss the way he played games with the kids. I miss the way he would sneak up behind me and kiss me while I was cooking. I miss the way like staying up all night talking about everything that was on our minds. But most of all, I miss sleeping with him. Rachel says. Thomas grins. If sleeping with me is so great, why did I find you in bed with Kyle? Asks Thomas. I don't mean sleeping with you sexually, although I do miss making love to you. However, I was talking about the act of sleeping, the way you lay behind me and wrap your arms around me, holding me. I pressed myself so tightly to your body that my breathing and pulse coincided with yours. It was as if we were in perfect harmony, as if we had become one. I have never felt more safe and at ease than when I was protected tightly in your arms while we slept in the spoon position. Rachel says, Thanks for sharing this, Rachel. Now, Thomas, I want you to. Says Angela. Doc, if you want me to tell Rachel what I miss about her, you may be disappointed, because although I miss many things about her, the pain I feel makes it almost impossible to miss her at all. Thomas says. Rachel cries at Thomas's words. Actually, Thomas, I was going to suggest that now would be a good time for you to ask Rachel one of the many questions you want answered. But before you ask one of the most important questions, I'm afraid I will only have to insist on one specific issue. Angela says. What can I ask her? Asks Thomas. You can ask Rachel a question that you and I discussed in detail during our last meeting together. Angela says. Fine. Rachel, have you ever had that kind of sex that you always denied me? Asks Thomas. Now, Rachel, you must answer truthfully and completely. There is no use holding back here. Angela says. Yes, Thomas. This was with Neil when I was dating him. It was a very unpleasant experience for me. That's why I turned you down when you brought it up, and I assure you that I didn't have it with Kyle before you discovered us that day. Rachel says. Several more weeks of sessions pass and Thomas reaches the point where he can look Rachel in the eyes again without breaking down, but he still refuses to allow any contact. Then one day at a session, Thomas surprises Angela and Rachel very pleasantly. Thomas is a few minutes late for the session, but when he arrives, he has a rose in his hand and walks over to where Rachel is sitting, takes her hand, lifts her to her feet, and kisses her. He then hands her the rose and takes his seat. Rachel has a stunned look on her face, and Angela has a confused look on her face. "Happy anniversary," Thomas says. His words break Rachel from her trance, and she brings her free hand to her lips, where she can still feel Thomas's kiss. She looks at the rose, then at Thomas. "Thomas," Rachel asks questioningly. "This anniversary is one of the greatest days of my life," says Thomas. "Well, then happy anniversary," Angela says. "Yes, happy anniversary," Rachel says. She's still a little dazed from the kiss, but she sits up, places the rose on her lap, and calms down. "Well, I'm feeling a little lost right now. Considering it's your anniversary, I'm not sure we should go ahead with what I had planned for today. It might ruin the mood," Angela says. "I think we should continue with what you have planned, Doctor. We are here to try to save our marriage, which began on this day. What better time to test it than this day?" asks Thomas. "Rachel, are you ready to continue?" asks Angela. "Yes, something very bad would have to happen to ruin this day for me now. This kiss and this rose show me that Thomas still values our marriage. We have come too far to stray now, just because today is our anniversary," Rachel says. "Well, I hope we all don't regret this, but I've decided that tonight Thomas will ask the list of questions that he and I have been working on. Tonight is the night when the most important questions will be asked. Are you sure you want to continue?" asks Angela. Rachel takes a long, slow breath and then lets it out slowly. "I'm ready," Rachel says. Thomas looks at Rachel, then at Angela, then back at Rachel. "Maybe this isn't the day for it," Thomas says. "Thomas, you've been wanting to hear the answers to these questions for months. Now is your chance," Angela says. "Yeah, but today is a lucky day. I don't know if I want to risk ruining it," Thomas says. "Well, if you don't want to do it today, we won't. But I'm really surprised you want to put it off after being so eager to get answers," Angela says. "I know, and I think I'm ready to hear the answers, but not today," Thomas says. "Well, we'll do that next week then. That's all I had planned for this week, so we can discuss whatever you want to discuss, or we can end the session early," Angela says. "I'd like to talk about our children," Rachel says. "Okay, what exactly?" asks Angela. "They miss you, Thomas. They haven't seen you since that morning. That was almost a year ago," Rachel says. "Yes, but you know why I didn't come back," Thomas says. "Yes, I know, but the kids don't understand why you didn't even call them. It's Ashley's birthday on Saturday, Thomas. When I asked her what she wanted for her birthday, she said she wanted to see you. She didn't want a new one. A toy or a pony or something that little girls usually ask for. Thomas, she wants to see her daddy." "What should I tell her?" asks Rachel. "Tell her anything. I still can't go back to this house, not yet," Thomas says. On Saturday, Rachel throws a party for Ashley. It is a family tradition to turn off the lights when the candles on the cake are lit and blown out. "Don't forget to make a wish when you blow out the candles," Rachel says. The lights go out and Ashley blows out the candles. When the lights come back on, Thomas is standing in the room. "Dad, Mommy, it worked. I made a wish and he's here," Ashley screams. Rachel is amazed to see Thomas as Ashley runs towards him and jumps into his arms. "Hey, birthday girl, I heard you missed me," Thomas says. "Oh yes, Dad, I missed you so much. We all did. I wished you were here," Ashley says. "Well, it looks like your wish was very strong because here I am," Thomas says. "Can you stay, Dad?" Ashley asks. "No, I can't stay. I'm very busy, so I could only come to the party, but then I have to go back," says Thomas. "Well, then we better make the most of this time with you, don't we, kids?" says Rachel. Thomas plays with the children all day and learns about everything they do. Then, when they all go to bed, Thomas heads to the door. "Thomas, wait," Rachel says. "Rachel, don't," Thomas says. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to thank you. You made Ashley's day by coming like that. You made the day for all of us. Thank you for that. I can only imagine how painful it was for you," Rachel says. It wasn't easy, that's for sure, but I had to do it. Hey, I'll see you next week at the session. You might suggest Angela prepare some boundaries. I have a feeling I won't like some of your answers. And I can get really angry, and I don't want to hurt anyone, Thomas says. Thomas, Rachel begins. No, leave it for next week. It was a good day, there's no point in ruining it, Thomas says. The following week, when Thomas arrives for a session, he discovers a makeshift restraint system on one of the chairs and sits down to be restrained voluntarily. Okay, I have to say that I'm against using restraints in a session like this, but given your consent and your tendency to react violently to certain things, I think it's probably a necessary evil in this case, Angela says. Believe me, doctor, the last thing I want to do is hurt anyone because I can't control my reaction to what I hear today, Thomas says. Rachel told me that you showed up at your daughter's birthday party, almost magically. I think that's wonderful, Angela says. Yeah, it's been a good day. Can we get started? Asks Thomas. Rachel, are you ready to answer any of Thomas' questions honestly? Asks Angela. Yes, says Rachel. Okay, Thomas, you can begin, Angela says. Was this the first time you slept with Kyle? Asks Thomas. No, as you suspected, this wasn't the first time I was with Kyle, Rachel says. How many times have you been with him? Asks Thomas. 4, including the day you caught us, Rachel says. When was the first time you slept with him? Asks Thomas. About 2 weeks before you caught us. I'm not sure of the exact dates of the first 3 times, but they were all within a 2-week period, Rachel says. Was it just sexual, or were there emotions involved? Asks Thomas. You'd know I was lying if I said there was no emotion. I don't do anything without emotion, but it wasn't love, it was attraction, Rachel says. Who is he? How did you meet him? Asks Thomas. He's a sales rep for one of our suppliers at work. I met him about 3 months before the first time we slept together at a launch event for a new product they were offering, Rachel says. So how did you end up in bed with him? Asks Thomas. We exchanged business cards, and he sent me emails a few times. At first, they were innocent and friendly, but then they became more personal. I should have stopped. I'm a married woman, but he attracted me, and the attention was nice. I let things get out of control, and the first time we went to lunch after another presentation and ended up in his hotel room. I knew it was wrong, but I wanted him so bad that I gave in. Thomas, I'm so sorry, Rachel says through tears. I know you're sorry. Did you carry protection with you? Thomas asks. Not the first time. It all happened so quickly that there was simply no time. But I insisted on it other times, says Rachel. Have you ever had sex with me on the same day you slept with him? Thomas asks. No, never. One night you were in the mood, but I was so ashamed and afraid that you would understand that I was pretending to be sick so that you would drop the subject, Rachel says. Was he better than me? Asks Thomas. No, Rachel says. Then why did you come back 3 times after the first time? Asks Thomas. I don't know, maybe because he was different. Every time I was with you, we made love, every time without exception. With Kyle it was different. It was just sex. It wasn't bad, not good, just different, says Rachel. Was he better than me? Asks Thomas. No, says Rachel. Why? Asks Thomas. Why what? Asks Rachel. Why? Why? Why did you do this? Why did you throw away everything we had for sex with another man? Did I do something to put you in his arms? Did I not give you the pleasure you needed? What did I do? For God's sake, tell me, Thomas says, bursting into tears. I'm not sure I know why I did it, but I know it wasn't because of anything you did. You've always been a kind and loving partner, an incredible lover, a wonderful husband, and a wonderful father. I've been trying to understand why I did this, and the only reason I can think of is that my attraction to him was too strong to ignore. I should have resisted harder. I knew it was wrong, but you didn't do it. Failed me, Thomas. I failed you, Rachel says. Was he the only one you've been with since we got together? Asks Thomas. There is a long pause. No, there was someone else, Rachel says. Who? Asks Thomas. Rebecca, Rachel says. Thomas strains against the restraints, and the wooden chair begins to crack. Then the chair falls apart and Thomas is freed. He immediately picks up the lamp from Angela's desk and smashes it on the floor. Angela and Rachel are shocked that he was able to free himself so easily. When and for how long? Thomas shouts. About 2 months after we got married, before Hannah was born, Rachel says. Rachel and Angela both back away from Thomas. That's over 6 years. Why the hell did you sleep with her for 6 years? Asks Thomas. Because for many years I was insecure about my sexuality. I love you, of course, and I get great pleasure from making love to you, but I also discovered that I like women sexually, Rachel says. So you love both men and women, and I'm only finding out about this now. Don't you think this is something I should have learned about earlier? Thomas asks, slamming his fists on Angela's desk. I wasn't sure how you would react. I would have to come to you and confess to a female affair. I could only see bad results from it, so I tried to keep it a secret, Rachel says. Why did you end your affair with Rebecca? Asks Thomas. I felt so guilty for doing it behind your back that I stopped for weeks, but always came back to it. Then one day Ashley almost caught us, and I felt so low and dirty for thinking about it with children in the house, for telling Rebecca that this was the end. I'm a terrible person, Thomas. How could I expect you to forgive everything I did? Rachel sobs. It won't be easy, that's for sure. So do you still have desires for sex with women, or did they disappear when you finished with Rebecca? Asks Thomas. I still experience them sometimes, says Rachel. Rachel, I never thought I would lay my hand on you in anger, but after what I heard, I have a strong desire to hurt you, Thomas says. Thomas clenches his fist as if he's going to hit Rachel with all his might. Rachel is crying uncontrollably, but stands absolutely still, as if ready to let Thomas hit her. Tears and fury in his eyes, Thomas's fist jerks forward several times, only to stop. Finally, Thomas falls to the floor in a heap and punches the ground, crying in absolute agony. Again, Rachel's reaction to the situation is to console Thomas. She moves towards him, but he sees her legs. Don't touch me, Thomas shouts. Thomas writhes on the ground for several minutes, and his sobs subside. He eventually rises to his feet, and there's a cold, angry look in his eyes as he looks first at Rachel, then at Angela, then back at Rachel. He doesn't say a word. He turns towards the door, which is supposed to open inwards, but with one powerful blow, the door shatters outwards into the corridor. Thomas leaves the building and drives away. Rachel and Angela are stunned for several minutes, still in a state of shock mixed with fear. What do you think he'll do? Asks Angela. I don't know. Thomas is the kindest, gentlest man you'll ever meet, most of the time, but when he gets angry, he just loses his temper. I've seen Thomas angry before, and then he leaves a path of destruction in his wake. But he's a lot angrier now. He's capable of anything at the moment, Rachel says. I think you'd better go home and watch your kids in case he decides to come over there, Angela says. No, Thomas may be able to hit me, but he would never touch children, Rachel says. Anyway, you better go and make sure, Angela says. Maybe you'll come with me if he shows up. Maybe you can calm him down. You've already done wonders with him up to this point, Rachel says. I would say that the current situation hardly qualifies as a miraculous success, says Angela. Trust me, I know Thomas. Without all the work you've done with him over the past few months, you and I would either be dead or very close to it right now, Rachel says. Rachel and Angela go into the house. They are relieved to find that Thomas is gone. They begin to wonder where he might be, but get their answer soon enough when Thomas' truck screeches into the yard. Rachel and Angela rush to confront him before the children see him in this state. They are horrified when Thomas pulls the unconscious body out of the truck and throws it over his shoulder, then reaches into the truck and pulls the other man out by the arm. Rachel recognizes the second person as Rebecca. Oh God, no, Thomas, what are you doing? Asks Rachel. We're going to play a little show and tell game. Now get inside, right now, Thomas says. Thomas, you don't want to do this. Think about what you are doing. Angela says. Doc, I might not be able to bring myself to hit her, but I'll beat you out next week, so shut up and go home right now. Thomas says. We won't go there, Rachel says. Do it yourself. I'm sure the children will like the little story I tell them. If you stay here, you will miss their reactions. I bet they will be priceless. Thomas says. Thomas, please don't do this. I'm begging you. Rachel says. It's too late for this, Rachel. I'll go there. You can either come with me or wait here, but either way, the kids will know every detail very soon. Thomas says. Thomas, can you? Angela begins. Angela, don't worry. His opinion won't change for now. Okay, Thomas, you win. I'll go with you. I just hope the kids won't be too traumatized by hearing what a terrible person I am. Rachel says. Rachel lowers her head and heads into the house. Are you coming, Doc? Asks Thomas. Yes, I suppose I should. Additional witnesses are always useful in court. Angela says. Thomas drags Rebecca along as he continues to carry the unconscious man. Children, gather here on the sofa. Mom and Dad want to tell you something very important. Rachel says. The children are confused and scared by the screams they heard outside, so they sit quietly on the sofa. Thomas enters the room and pushes Rebecca into one of the chairs. Sit and don't move, Thomas says. He then plops the other person down on another chair. It finally becomes clear that the other person is Kyle. Hey kids, nice to see you all again. Now I want you all to be very quiet and listen carefully as Mom tells you something very important. Thomas says. I? Asks Rachel. You are the star of history. I promise you that my version will be much clearer and they will probably respond better to your version. Thomas says. Rachel nods, giving in. Kids, you are all very smart, and you were all curious about that special hug Mommy and Daddy give each other in the bedroom. Well, this special hug is called sex. Sex is a special thing that adults sometimes do together. Well, when a man and woman get married, they promise each other that they will only have sex with each other for the rest of their lives. As you know, breaking a promise is a very bad act. Well, breaking a promise to only have sex with your spouse is probably the worst promise you can break. She breaks down and starts crying. I broke the promise I made to your dad when we got married. I promised him that I would only have sex with him. For the rest of my life, I broke my promise many times. A little over 6 years ago, when you kids were much younger, I broke a promise to your dad by regularly having sex with Rebecca. Then, about a year ago, I broke my promise again when I had sex with Kyle, the man in the chair. Your dad caught me with Kyle, so he hasn't lived at home for the past year. He couldn't live with me after he discovered that I broke my promise to him. My desire to have sex with first Rebecca and then Kyle has destroyed our family. Your dad doesn't seem to want to marry me anymore, and although it would hurt me if he divorced me, I deserved it. I want to apologize to you children. My inappropriate behavior and my decision to break a promise have deprived you of the life you deserve with Mom and Dad always with you, which now seems impossible. I'm so sorry, Rachel says. She began to cry. 4 children are also crying now. Thomas walks over to Rebecca and pulls her to her feet. He looks into her eyes, giving her instructions. You will apologize to my children for your role in cheating on Rachel and ask my forgiveness for having sex with my wife. You understand me? Asks Thomas. Rebecca nods nervously. Children, I am also to blame for the affair that your mother and I had, just like she was. I initially convinced her to experiment with her feelings. I'm really sorry it ended this way. I would never play any role. If I thought this would end up hurting you, I'm so sorry for all of this, Thomas. I can't even apologize to you for what we did. Even before you came and took me, I felt incredibly guilty about all of this. I mean, Rachel is your wife. I was complicit in adultery. I was part of her betrayal. I don't deserve to be forgiven for that. What I did, I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm just asking for this. You can't blame me for wanting to have sex with a sexy woman like your wife, says Rebecca. No, I guess I can't blame you or him for that. That reminds me, now it's his turn to apologize, Thomas says. Thomas walks over to where Kyle is still sitting in the chair. Thomas puts his mouth next to Kyle's ear and whispers so that only Kyle can hear what he has to say. Now, I'm only going to say this once, so listen carefully. You have a solution. If you do as I tell you, you can leave here and never hear from me again if you don't do as I tell you. I'm telling you that you will leave here without your manhood. The choice is yours. Now, you will apologize to my children for having sex with their mother, and you will apologize to me for having sex with my wife. If I don't like your choice of words, I'll do what I promised. I think we understand each other. Make your choice. Thomas whispers, "Children, I am very sorry for what I did. I should never have had sex with your mother. I knew she was married. I knew she would have to betray your father to be with me. But I thought about my selfish attitude. I didn't care one bit what it might do with her family, and it was wrong of me. I'm a terrible person, and I hope you all learn a lesson from your mother's mistake and don't fall in love with sleazy people like me. You showed great restraint in not killing me, which is entirely justified. I took liberties with your wife that no man has the right to." Kyle says, "Thomas frees Rebecca and Kyle from slavery. Now get out of here and don't let me see any of you around any of my family ever again." Thomas says. Kyle and Rebecca quickly run out of the house and race down the street in search of a bus or taxi. "Children, I'm sorry you had to hear all these terrible things. It would no doubt be easier for you not to know. I'm sure some of you understand the reality of what you heard tonight, while some of you may have no idea what we were talking about, or only have a vague idea of it, which is confusing you at the moment. Your mom didn't think you were old enough to hear it, but I insisted. There were too many secrets. I wanted it to be out in the open so we all knew where this was going. Kids, not much has really changed. Your mom and I still love you, and that will never change. The only thing that has changed now is that you know why I don't live at home. This woman is Dr. Angela Barnes. She helps your mom and me solve our problems. As you can imagine, there is still a lot of work ahead. Right now, I don't know what will happen. Your mom and I could stay together, but at this stage, it would take a miracle. Most likely, we will get divorced, but you must understand that this has nothing to do with you, and this does not mean that one of us loves any of you less. I know you still have a little time before bed, but I think it would be better if you all went to bed now. I'll come by to get you all tucked in before we go. If you want to talk to anyone about tonight, but don't want to talk to Mom or me, I think we could convince Dr. Barnes to talk to you about it, right, Angela?" asks Thomas. "I would certainly be happy to help if any of you need to talk. As for you two, I think our next session should be in a week, not before," Angela says. Angela leaves, and the children go to bed. Thomas puts the kids to bed, then returns to the living room, where Rachel is crying into her arms. "I'm going to leave. Are you okay?" asks Thomas. "No, I'm not fine, Thomas. Why did you do that?" asks Rachel. "I guess you could say it was self-medicating," Thomas says. "How the hell do you perceive this as self-medication?" asks Rachel. "What irritated me most, Rachel, was that you said children never need to know, and Angela agreed with you. Now the children may be emotionally traumatized by what they heard tonight, and if so, then I take full responsibility for it, but they had just as much a right to know what you did as I did. But more than that, it was a revenge factor." Thomas says. "Revenge on whom?" asks Rachel. "You. I couldn't bring myself to physically hurt you, no matter how much I wanted to, so I changed my tactics. By forcing you to tell your children about your infidelity, I deeply hurt your heart. I see it in your eyes. You're dying inside right now because even if they don't understand what you did, your children know that you destroyed our family. Taking you and Kyle killed me inside, so I retaliated months ago. You slapped me and told me how dare I think that what happened didn't hurt you. I have no doubt that you were hurt, but once the shock of what happened tonight wears off, you will know a new kind of pain. I will truly understand what it means to hurt. I think by your next meeting with Angela, you will have a much better understanding of what you did to me," Thomas says. Thomas gets up and leaves. Angela was a little nervous as she waited for Thomas and Rachel to arrive for their session, a week after the explosive night when Rachel finally told Thomas the whole truth about not one, but two affairs. Thomas snapped and went and kidnapped Kyle and Rebecca, and took them to a house where Thomas forced Rachel to tell the children what she had done. He then forced Rebecca and Kyle to apologize to the children and to him for their part in Rachel's cheating. Angela met with Thomas twice a week and Rachel once a week in addition to the group sessions, but after the events of that night, Angela decided to cancel the individual sessions the following week so that the group session would start as soon as they both arrived, and it would be the first time all three of them had been in the same room since that night. Angela was very shocked when Thomas arrived first that day. He always came after Rachel, but this time he came first. Angela found it rather strange that Thomas was whistling as he walked in and had a smile on his face, something she had never seen before. "You're in a really good mood today, considering what happened last week," Angela says. "I'm in a really good mood today because of what happened last week, Doc," Thomas says. "How could that make you feel better?" asks Angela. "You know, as someone who works in people's mental health, you can sometimes be dumb about this issue. Last week was exactly what I needed. I've been holding this shit in for almost a year. I desperately wanted to know what Rachel did and who she did it to. When I finally found out the truth, I was finally able to take revenge, and that's what I did," Thomas says. "How was revenge last week?" asks Angela. "Rachel hurt me far more than she could ever imagine, forcing her to tell the kids what she did to the two people she did it to right there, so the kids could see that I hurt her as deeply as she did. Hurt me," Thomas says. "You don't think she was hurt before?" asks Angela. "Oh, I know she did it, but her injury was a paper cut and mine was a gunshot wound. If and when Rachel shows up, I bet she looks terrible. Her hair will be a mess, she won't be wearing any makeup, her clothes won't fit, and she'll look like she's been crying nonstop," Thomas says. "Thomas, I have to ask, were you ever going to try to save your marriage, or was it all about finding out what she did so you could get the full measure of revenge on her?" asks Angela. "You make it sound like trying to save my marriage and getting revenge are two different things, but they are not," Thomas says. "How are they related?" asks Angela. "Right now, we are both deeply hurt by each other. If I hadn't hurt her as much as I did, I wouldn't have had a chance at reconciliation. Now, at least, there's a chance we can fix it," Thomas says. "How do you explain this?" asks Angela. "I will never be able to forgive Rachel for what she did, but I still love her. She will never forgive herself for what she did, but she still loves me. If we left things as is and tried to get back together, there would be this thing hanging over our heads that would eventually lead us to divorce court. So we both hurt each other, and we both feel terrible about what we did. We are now equals. Neither of us has a clear moral superiority over the others. We have many great stories together and some bad ones. If we use the good things as the basis for a whole new relationship, we have a chance to overcome it all and fall in love again and again," Thomas says. "That might be the stupidest thing I've ever heard, but you know what? I think you're probably right," Angela says. Rachel enters a few minutes later. She looks exactly like Thomas said. Her hair is a mess, she has no makeup on, her clothes don't match, and she's clearly crying. "Sorry I'm late, sorry I'm late," Rachel says. "Everything is fine. While we waited, Thomas and I talked about why he did what he did last week, and while his answer was quite shocking, I think there's something we can build on, assuming you're all still wanting to save your marriage," Angela says. "I'm not sure anymore. After last week, I'm not sure of anything anymore," Rachel says. "Well, let's see if we can convince you of what's going on again. Thomas told me he did what he did out of revenge," Angela says. "I know before he left last week, he told me that part," Rachel says. "But he didn't tell you why he decided to take revenge, did he?" asks Angela. "Obviously, it was because I hurt him. Otherwise, why would he take revenge?" asks Rachel. "Well, yes, it was because you hurt him, but Thomas told me that he got back at you this way in the hope that it would help save your marriage," Angela says. "How the hell is what happened last week supposed to save our marriage?" asks Rachel. "I'll let Thomas explain it to you," Angela says. "Rachel, You hurt me more than you could ever imagine by doing what you did. It was bad enough that you did what you did to Kyle, but after doing the same to Rebecca, there's no way I could ever go back to the way things were with you. You were ashamed and sorry for what you did, but you weren't as hurt as I was. If I agreed to return to you in this way, your two affairs would hang over our heads until they destroyed what was left of our relationship. There's no way to end this relationship. Nothing can change what happened, so the only way I could see us getting back together was if I did something as terrible as you did. I wanted this terrible thing to physically attack you. I can be a very cruel person at times, but the last thing I could do was lay a hand on you. So what if I attacked you, and that would be the worst that I have ever done. But even in extreme anger, I couldn't hit you. I couldn't do it. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I was still determined to do something terrible that would balance things out for you. So I decided the next worst thing I could do was kidnap Kyle and Rebecca and make them apologize to the kids for dealing with you having sex after I forced you to tell the kids what you did. I was dying inside when you told the kids about your business, and I wanted to scream for you to stop, but I knew I had to make you go through with it. I had to hurt you deep enough for you to understand how much pain you caused me. I had to knock you down to your lowest misery with me, because only when we are both suffering because of the other's actions, and when we both have a terrible thing hanging over our heads, can we have a chance to save our marriage. This may not make sense to you, but I had to hurt you to try to save us, Thomas says. It makes sense to me, Thomas. You're right, until last week I was in pain, but I had no idea what real pain was until the events of last week. Now I've hit rock bottom, my heart is broken. The next morning, I didn't even want to get out of bed. My only question is, can two people who have hurt each other so much find enough good things to save their marriage? Asks Rachel. That's what we're trying to find out, Angela says. After taking the first steps towards reconciliation, Thomas and Rachel begin dating Angela 3 days a week, and each of them meets with her alone once a week. 15 months after Thomas caught Rachel with Kyle, they are at a Friday afternoon session with Angela, just taking stock. Rachel, do you have any plans for tonight? Asks Thomas. No, I don't have anything planned. Why do you ask? Asks Rachel. I was wondering if you would like to go out to dinner with me, Thomas says. Thomas, are you asking me out on a date? Asks Rachel. Yes, I guess so, Thomas says. Well, I'd love to have dinner with you, but we better see what Angela thinks, Rachel says. I think it's a great idea. The more you two are willing and able to spend time together away from this office, the better your chances of a full reconciliation, Angela says. Well, then it looks like we're going to dinner, Rachel says. Great. I thought we could try this new Italian place in Lincoln, Thomas says. I am pleased to hear that, Rachel says. If you're going to leave the house, Rachel, you might want to change your clothes first, Angela says. I think I'm kind of a mess right now, Rachel says, looking at herself. Well then, how about we leave early so you can go clean up, and I'll make a reservation and pick you up at 7 o'clock, Thomas says. When they get to the restaurant, Rachel is surprised by what Thomas is doing. So, tell me a little about yourself, Thomas says. What? Asks Rachel. Okay, I'll go first. My name is Thomas. I'm 31. I have my own small engineering company here in the city. I prefer country or classical music, but I can listen to anything except hardcore rap. I play golf, and I'd rather drive a beat-up old pickup truck than a luxury car. It's your turn, Thomas says. Fine. My name is Rachel. I'm also 31 years old. I work for Smith and Associates here in town as a project manager. I like country and rock and roll. I work out a lot and still play basketball with the girls at school, and I prefer luxury cars, but now I have a minivan so I can drive my kids around, Rachel says. Oh, do you have children? Asks Thomas. Yes, I have 4 wonderful children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Do you have children? Asks Rachel. Yes, I also have 4 children from previous relationships. They live with their mother, and I'm not on the best terms with her, so I don't get to see the children as often as I would like, Thomas replies. This is bad. I think they really miss you. My kids ask me all the time when their dad is coming to see them, says Rachel. This may be too personal a question for a first date, but what happened between you and your ex? Asks Thomas. Nothing happened between me and him. Something happened between me and a man I met at work, and between me and a friend. My ex didn't react very well to that, Rachel replies. No, I think he really couldn't. I was in that position myself when I found my ex in our bed with another man, says Thomas. What a coincidence, we had the same problem, but I was on one side and you were on the other, Rachel says. I'm guessing your ex wasn't any more successful at forgiveness than I was, Thomas says. No, he tried, he really tried. We even went to a marriage counselor for a while, but he finally decided, says Rachel. He decided there would always be a dark cloud hanging over you because of what happened, Thomas says. Yeah, that's for sure, Rachel agrees. Yes, it was the same for me. It was so bad that when we went to marriage counseling, I couldn't look at my ex or let her touch me for fear I'd break, Thomas says. This is very similar to our situation. We're a funny couple, broken, unsure if we'll ever be able to love again, but still we keep fighting, says Rachel. If I didn't think I could love again, I wouldn't be here, but the pain is still so bad that I'm afraid I won't be able to open up to you as easily as before, Thomas says. I will feel the same way, but maybe it will be better for both of us. We understand what the other has been through, and neither of us is in a rush to risk getting hurt again. I think we should just take our time and try to have fun. Who knows, maybe we can leave our exes behind and start truly living again, says Rachel. It's a great idea, agrees Thomas. Addressing each other as strangers, Thomas and Rachel talk about things they already know or think they know about each other. Since the next day is Saturday, Thomas arrives, and he and the children spend a day full of fun, continuing to act as if they were just starting to get to know each other. Monday afternoon is the first session since their date, and Angela is eager to find out how it went. Well, tell me what happened, says Angela. Well, Thomas came up with a unique way to deal with it. When we sat down at the restaurant, he introduced himself as if we had just met, and we started talking about everything we'd known about each other for years, says Rachel. Rather, about what we thought we knew. I always thought your favorite color was red, but it turns out it's green, Thomas says. Did you really think my favorite color was red? Asks Rachel. You have so many red clothes, I was just guessing, Thomas replies. I look good in red, but that doesn't mean it's my favorite color, says Rachel. You look really good in red, Thomas says. So you treated it like a first date. What happened when you took her home? Asks Angela. I dropped her off and drove home, Thomas replies. So there was no kiss goodbye? Asks Angela. No, neither of us are ready for that yet. Maybe for a few weeks, Rachel says. Thomas, do you feel the same way? Asks Angela. I'm the one who couldn't stand her touch a few months ago. I want to take things slow so we don't screw it up, Thomas says. Well, I want to talk about sex. We talked a lot about sex in our individual sessions. Thomas, if nothing changed this weekend, you haven't had sex since you caught Rachel with Kyle. That's over a year without sex. The sexual tension is visible on your face. It's noble that you abstained and remained faithful to Rachel when no one would have blamed you if you had gone and found someone. I think it would be helpful for the two of you to at least talk about sex together. You may not be ready or able to have sex with each other right now, but maybe just talking about it will relieve some of the sexual tension you're both feeling, says Angela. This may sound like a stupid question, but how exactly should we talk about sex? Asks Rachel. I don't think it's a stupid question. I don't have any idea how we'll do it either, Thomas says. Are you serious? Have you never talked about sex before? Asks Angela. Well, the thing is, we never had to talk, we just did it, Thomas says. Understand. Okay, I'll help you get started. Thomas, you got really angry when you found out that Rachel did it to Kayla because she rarely did it to you, and even on those occasions you had to beg her for it. Why don't you ask Rachel why she was so willing to do for Kyle what she was reluctant to do for you, Angela says. Why would you be so willing to do this to a man you claim to have no feelings for and did not want to do this for your husband? Asks Thomas. I think I was afraid, Rachel replies. What were you afraid of? Asks Thomas. Well, you know you don't like me talking about my relationship with Neil, but if I'm going to be honest with you, I have to. As you know, Neil was the first person I had sex with. We dated for quite a long time before we had sex for the first time, and then I was in love with him. Well, after we started having sex, everything changed. He became jealous and controlling, and he wanted me to do more things to him sexually. He put pressure on me. When I finally decided that our relationship was over, I decided to never allow anyone to have that kind of sexual power over me again. That's why I was so reluctant to do certain things to you. I was afraid that you would start acting like Neil, and I wouldn't be able to go through that again, Rachel says. So why did you do this to Kyle? Asks Thomas. Kyle was the one who initiated the desire for sexual relations, but when it came to the sex itself, I was in charge. I found that with his submission, I felt a great sense of power. I had the opportunity to give him great pleasure, but only if I wanted it myself. Thomas, I'm so sorry, Rachel says. I know. If you haven't discussed this with Angela yet, maybe you should talk to her about your relationship with Neil. You still carry a lot of emotional scars from your time with him, Thomas says. That's a good idea. I'd like to leave that bastard dead and buried where he belongs, Rachel says. I'd be happy to help you work through any issues you may have from your past relationships, Angela says. Doctor, if you don't mind, I'd like to take this conversation in a different direction, Thomas says. Thomas, I was really hoping you would start talking about sex today, Angela says. Oh, I still intend to talk about sex, doctor. I just want to narrow the discussion down to one specific area, Thomas says. Which one? Asks Angela. Wives who love both men and women, says Thomas. Rachel's face turns pale, and she looks down at her knees. Thomas, are you sure you want to do this? We're still on shaky ground right now, says Angela. Don't worry, doctor. I intend to keep this conversation calm and civil. I just have a few questions I'd like answered, Thomas says. Rachel, are you ready to answer these types of questions? Asks Angela. Yes, Thomas is my husband, and I want him to remain my husband. In order to maintain any hope of this, I must voluntarily tell him everything he wants to know, Rachel says. Okay, Thomas, ask your questions, but please choose your words carefully, Angela says. Will. Rachel, how long have you and I been friends? Asks Thomas. Since fourth grade, Rachel answers. What kind of friends were we? Can we say that we were close or were just acquaintances? Asks Thomas. Thomas, you know we've been best friends since fourth grade, Rachel says. So we were best friends. Were we the kind of friends who trusted each other with our secrets? Asks Thomas. Yes, of course, we trusted each other with all our secrets, Rachel says. All our secrets. It's funny, I don't remember you ever mentioning the feelings you had for women at any point in our friendship, Thomas says. I couldn't tell you about this. At that time, this topic was condemned even more than now. Besides, I wasn't sure how I felt about this for a long time, Rachel replies. But in the end, you were able to sort out your feelings and made a decision. What decision did you make, and when did you make it? Asks Thomas. In my second year of college, I decided that I liked both men and women. At that time, you were studying in your college. If you were around, I probably would have told you. By the time you came back into my life, I had decided to live as a man-loving woman and explore my attraction to women in secret. When you proposed to me, I thought about telling you, but I decided it wasn't necessary because I was never going to act on my wishes, Rachel says. What has changed? Asks Thomas. Well, as you know, our first house was next to Rebecca's house. You worked so hard to make a name for yourself that sometimes I didn't know if you came home at night because you came after I fell asleep and left before I woke up. I started spending more and more time with Rebecca to fill those lonely hours. We spent the first 2 months just talking. We talked a lot about sex, and she admitted that she liked both men and women and asked me if I had ever been with a woman or if I had thought about it. I said I'd never thought about it, but apparently I wasn't very convincing because she called me a liar. She finally got me to admit that I was thinking about it. She tried to reassure me by telling me that many women felt this way and that there was nothing shameful or embarrassing about it. I felt better after I was finally able to talk to someone about it. I was struggling with my feelings inside, and it felt great to just let them out. Then she kissed me. I didn't expect this, so I was quite shocked. As with Kyle later, my desire took over that first time, and I allowed Rebecca to teach me the pleasures of female sex. It was incredible, a completely different sexual experience. It wasn't better than sex with men, but it provided a completely different set of sensations and emotions. When the first experience was over, I told Rebecca that I shouldn't have let her do that to me, and she said that in a few days I wouldn't have any regrets about what we did, and that I could call her any time when I was ready to do it again. Well, she was wrong. I still had regrets more than a week later. I cheated on you, I betrayed your trust, I risked everything, but even that couldn't stop me from calling her. I made Rebecca agree to keep our affair a secret so I could continue to explore this side of me without risking losing you. It was a mistake, I should never have done it, and when the children were old enough that discovery was inevitable, I stopped it. I haven't been with Rebecca or any other woman since then, Rachel says. But the desire still remains, asks Thomas. Yes, Rachel replies. Which of your desires is stronger, for men or for women, asks Thomas. I don't. What do you mean, asks Rachel. Well, let's say we're getting a divorce. Which gender would you most likely have sex with first if you suddenly find yourself alone, asks Thomas. I really do not know. It had been over 15 months since I had sex with anyone. I might be inclined to have sex with whoever showed interest first, says Rachel. Yeah, maybe that was a bad example. Let's say you're walking through a shopping mall. Who do you pay more attention to? Asks Thomas. I don't know, Rachel says. Think about it. You walk through a shopping center. There are people around you. Who do you pay more attention to? Asks Thomas. On women, I guess, but that's an unfair example because the mall is mostly women, Rachel replies. What sites do you visit on the internet? Asks Thomas. Where do these questions lead? Asks Rachel. I'm trying to figure out whether you're a woman who loves women who pretends to love men too, in order to save her family, or one who loves both men and women, who wants her husband to understand her sexuality. Now, what sites do you visit? Asks Thomas. I found that I preferred amateur sites that showed videos of real couples. The picture quality is usually not very good, and the camera is usually stationary, but it's real, it's raw, it's much more believable than those sites where actors and actresses pretend to, like, pick up a girl at a bus stop or something. Something like that, Rachel replies. So all these amateur videos are of a man and a woman? Asks Thomas. Not all. Some show two women, some show two men, some show a man with two women, some show a woman with two men, Rachel says. What specific videos do you watch most often? Asks Thomas. I like the ones with three people, Rachel replies. Okay, are you watching a video with a man and two women or a woman and two men? Asks Thomas. One man and two women, Rachel replies. Damn it, Thomas says. What? Angela asks, interjecting again into the conversation. This doesn't tell me anything. If there are two women and one man, she likes both, says Thomas. I don't understand. You know that she loves both men and women. She admitted it. What exactly are you trying to find out? Asks Angela. Doctor, let me tell you a little secret. Rachel is attracted to you. I wasn't sure for a long time, but now that I know about this side of her, I am absolutely sure that you are attracted to her. Look how she blushed. She probably thought it was hidden, but I noticed it. I'm trying to determine, doctor, who Rachel would choose now if she had to choose between us. Putting all other factors aside, let's forget that she and I are married and have 4 children. I want to know if she had never met either of us, who would she choose? Thomas says. Thomas, this is not fair. You can't expect her to be able to answer that, Angela says. Of course I can. She can either tell the truth or lie. Doctor, I need to know this. I decided that this would be my last session of one shit anyway. It's time for Rachel to make a choice. If she chooses me, we can go home and work out our problems together. If she chooses you, I will file for divorce tomorrow, Thomas says. What do you mean if she chooses me? Asks Angela. Rachel will have sex with one of us tonight. Doctor, have you told her that you also love both men and women? Judging by her expression, I'd say no. Rachel, you hurt me, and I hurt you just as much. I am ready to take you back, but we will have to make changes, and you will agree that we cannot go back to the way things were before. Before I discuss these changes, I need to know that you want to be with me. I know it's going to be hard for you to put everything aside and just choose between me and Angela based on sexual attraction alone, but I'm giving you an ultimatum. If you don't make a choice within the next 5 minutes, I'll file for divorce tomorrow. If you choose Angela, I will file for divorce tomorrow. If you choose me, we will go home, make love, and tomorrow we will discuss the changes that need to be made in our lives in order for our relationship to survive. Even by choosing me, you do not guarantee that we will remain married. Only after we both agree to changes will our marriage be out of danger. Until then, divorce is a real possibility. Now, so that I don't see if you choose her, I'll blindfold myself. Make your choice and kiss whoever you choose. You have 5 minutes from now on, says Thomas. Thomas uses his tie as a blindfold and sets the alarm on his watch for 5 minutes. Rachel stands up and looks between Thomas and Angela, her eyes filled with tears. 5 minutes later, the alarm goes off. Time's up. Goodbye, Rachel, Thomas says. Thomas, wait, I've made my choice. Please give me a few more seconds, Rachel says. Okay, says Thomas. Angela, Thomas is right. I am attracted to you. I thought I was able to hide it, but he knows me so well. She kisses the winner. Thomas removes the blindfold, surprised that she chose him. Why did you choose me? Asks Thomas. To tell you the truth, I couldn't get it all out of my head. Oh, I've been able to look at you both as pure sex objects rather than people I know and have a history with. But whether male or female, you're still the best lover I've ever or it was, and I couldn't forget about it, says Rachel. We're going to have to change a lot, you know that, Thomas says. Yes, I understand, and once we agree on what changes need to be made, we can arrange our new life together. For now, let's just go home and make love, Rachel says. I thought you'd never ask, Thomas says. So that's it. Are our sessions with you over? Asks Angela. Oh, maybe we'll come back once a month to let you know how we're doing, but you won't be able to help us with what we need to do now, Doctor, Thomas says. We will be forever grateful to you for everything you have done for us, Rachel says. Thomas and Rachel go home and make love as they did before, but with a complete release of the years' pent-up sexual tension. This is the first night Thomas has spent in the house since he found Rachel with Kyle. The next morning, Rachel sends the kids off to school or daycare before Thomas gets up. They agreed before bed that they would take the day off to start working on defining their new relationship. When Thomas enters the kitchen, Rachel pulls out a chair for him to sit and eat a large breakfast of eggs, bacon, sausage, toast, fruit, orange juice, and coffee. Rachel sits across from Thomas while he eats, and they just stare at each other in silence. Thomas finishes his breakfast, clears the table, then sits down opposite Rachel again. Well, now we can begin. It's going to be a struggle to do this, Rachel. I think you understand that. Right now, I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully trust you like I used to, Thomas says. I know, Thomas, I don't deserve such complete trust. I betrayed your trust and had 2 affairs for my own selfish reasons. I'd like to think it won't happen again, but I shouldn't have let it happen the first time, so I can't say I won't do something like that again. I hope not, but it's possible, says Rachel. I understand it. Surprisingly, I accepted the possibility that you would leave again. I won't stay with you if I find out you're having an affair behind my back again. So, although it will hurt me to know that you are having sex with someone else, I insist that you tell me if you have such a desire or need. I'm not saying you should have mine approval because I don't approve of it, but I can't stand another secret of this kind. If you just have to sleep with someone, do it, but admit it. I won't like it, but I'd rather know than not know. Can you understand this? Asks Thomas. Yes, I understand. I hope and strive for that not to happen, but if it does, you'll be the first to know, Rachel replies. I also make it a condition of our reconciliation that you are willing to open up to me sexually, Thomas says. What does it mean? Asks Rachel. This means I won't beg for certain things anymore. I understand Neil's situation and your concerns, but this won't happen to me. I think that's acceptable, Rachel replies. Do you agree that I have been a gentle and caring lover throughout our relationship? Asks Thomas. Yes, of course. Why do you ask? Rachel answers. Because I want you to volunteer to let us experience some things together. I would never force you to do this, but I hope you trust me enough to try, Thomas says. I must say the thought is a little scary again, but you make a good point. You are a very gentle and caring lover. Regular sex with you is much better, so it makes sense that this would be better too. I'm not crazy about the idea, but I won't deny us the opportunity to see if we like it together, says Rachel. Thomas and Rachel discuss many things they want to change in their relationship. They accept most things willingly, with some concessions on both sides, such as allowing Rachel's parents to stay at their home during visits. They make a list of changes and both sign their agreement to the new terms of their marriage. Thomas adds another condition, which surprises Rachel. Okay, the last thing I think we should do to kind of start our new relationship is officially renew our wedding vows. I would look at it not just as an update, but as a whole new wedding after the death of our first marriage, says Thomas. Wow, so you're talking about a formal ceremony with family, friends, the priest, flowers, the whole thing, asks Rachel. Yes, as I said, this will be the second wedding. I think it should be done pretty soon, and we will be celebrating this date, as well as our current anniversary in the years to come, says Thomas. Okay, I guess I could organize something that would be appropriate and tasteful, Rachel says. I want you to understand how seriously I take this ceremony. I wish we could get new wedding rings and everything, Thomas says. You want me to give up the ring you designed for me? Asks Rachel. No, we don't have to get rid of them. You can wear your current ring on your other hand, but the new ring will be on your traditional finger, Thomas says. Okay, I can live with that as long as the new ring is nice, Rachel says. I'll design you a ring that will make all your friends jealous, Thomas says. Okay, you say it should be done soon. What date should we choose for our new anniversary? Asks Rachel. How about a month from Saturday? This would allow enough time to plan a simple ceremony and for guests to make arrangements to be here, says Thomas. A month later, on a beautiful Saturday, Thomas and Rachel renew their wedding vows in front of their family and friends. After the ceremony, there is a reception where Thomas and Rachel meet the man to whom they owe a lot. Angela, glad you could come, Thomas says. I wouldn't miss it. I needed to see this with my own eyes. Considering that when you first walked into my office, you couldn't look at Rachel or let her touch you. It's incredible to me that she's now sitting on your lap with her arms around you, Angela says. Well, believe it or not, we owe you for any semblance of a relationship we have now, Rachel says. Well, I'm not sure I can take credit for this. I looked back at the notes I took during our sessions, and I'm even more confused about your case now than I was then. But I guess everything worked out. Tell me, how did you manage to solve this? Asks Angela. We made an agreement. Here, I have a copy for you. I was hoping you would come so I could give it to you, Thomas says. Angela quickly reads the terms of the agreement. I would say that you both were very generous in this agreement. This shows me that you both really want this marriage to work, Angela says. Yes, we want to. Not once in all this time has my love for Thomas wavered. In fact, I love him even more after going through this difficult experience with him, says Rachel. Well, congratulations. I'd like you to come back to me in a few months so we can make sure everything is still going well, Angela says. We'll definitely do it, Thomas says. How are the children holding up? Asks Angela. Surprisingly good. They are very happy that Thomas is back home, and they did treat me differently at first after they found out, but I deserved it. They seem fine now, but we have talked to them several times about what happened to help them understand better. I think they'll be fine, Rachel says. Okay, this is what bothered me the most. These little angels were innocent victims in this whole situation. Whether what happened to them was necessary or not, which we probably won't agree to, but I'm glad they seem to be okay, says Angela. Later, Thomas and Rachel are about to enter their bedroom when Thomas stops in the doorway. "What happened, dear?" asks Rachel. "I just had a flashback of that day. I think we need to completely redo this bedroom. New carpet, new bed, new dressers, change the color, change the curtains, everything. I can't stay in this room again until it changes," Thomas says, stepping back. "You stayed in this room for the last month, and it didn't bother you," Rachel says. "I know, but I can't do it anymore. The ceremony today may have brought back memories of that day, but I can't stay in this room any longer as long as it looks like this," Thomas says. "Okay, we'll sleep in the guest room and we'll remake the bedroom," Rachel says. Over the next few weeks, Thomas and Rachel completely remodel their bedroom, and when they're finished, the room looks completely different. "Well, do you think you can stay here now?" asks Rachel. "Yeah, I think I can handle it now. It might be the same walls, but it's a whole new room," Thomas says. "The kids are at your parents' for the rest of the weekend. What do you say we try out this big new bed?" Rachel says. "It works for me," Thomas says. They make love. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one. 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 Click to